What is going on today, guys? My name is Forger. Today, we're going to be making a video about Ubisoft's bankruptcy problem and what would theoretically happen to Ubisoft if it were to go bankrupt. Let's get right into it, guys. So it goes without saying, Ubisoft is one of the strangest giants in gaming. It's a company that somehow owns the best historical assassin simulator, probably the only one, honestly, a tactical hostile shooter, a Viking tourism simulator, and a game about pirates, even though we already have one, Sea of Thieves. It took 11 years to develop this pirate game just for it to turn out, just fine. And a dance franchise that's somehow outlived half that industry. For decades, Ubisoft has survived on one simple strategy: make a lot of games. Some are excellent, some are broken, and some delayed so long that they've become folklore. But now, the numbers are starting to look ugly. Very, very ugly. Ubisoft just posted a record-breaking operating loss of over 1 billion euros. Sales are falling, cash is burning in an accelerated speed. Studios are reconstructing, quote-unquote, which is just layoffs and budget cuts. Projects are being cancelled, and people are beginning to ask the question nobody thought Ubisoft would ever face. What happens if Ubisoft can't survive? And more importantly, what happens to all of its franchises? Who gets Assassin's Creed? Who buys Rainbow Six? Does Splinter Cell finally fucking escape development hell only to be sold to someone else? If this empire cracks, someone's walking away with the keys, So it's not really any secret that Ubisoft has looked unstable for years. It's not dead. It's not collapsing, it's just sort of perpetually wobbling. You can watch the stock at any point. But in its latest financial report, things got harder to ignore. Ubisoft reported 1.525 billion in net bookings, 1.395 billion in sales, and a staggering 1.045 billion operating loss. It's not a rough quarter territory. It's where alarm bells start fucking ringing in the accounting department. Reuters called it a record annual loss, and Ubisoft itself warned investors that sales could fall another 8 to 9% next year, and perhaps most worrying, the company could burn through another 500 million in cash. That's euros. Now, Ubisoft still has over 1.3 billion in cash reserves, so this is not an immediate collapse, there's not a bankruptcy tomorrow or anything. But this is kind of weakness that forces difficult decisions: layoffs, studio closures, project cancellations, asset sales, and in the worst case scenario, bankruptcy protection, which raises the terrifying possibility Ubisoft may need to eventually monetize the one thing it has in abundance: its franchises. And it goes without saying, they own a lot of franchises. And it's not really like a secret that some of these are like crown jewels, Some of the most recognizable franchises in gaming. Like untouchable billion-dollar names. Brands that could survive anything. Ubisoft's flagship, its clear identity, is Assassin's Creed. This is the financial oxygen tank. And if Ubisoft were to ever sell one IP, this would be the hardest to let go. And it would probably sell for billions on its own. The valuation of Ubisoft would definitely not greatly reflect the sale of Assassin's Creed itself. Rainbow Six Siege is like one of the most successful live service games. It's still generating revenue, it's still active, and it's still one of Ubisoft's most valuable digital assets. Then we have Far Cry, which is quiet for now, but still definitely a crown jewel sort of status. And then we kind of got the more workhorses. They make a good amount of money. There's The Division, which, kind of mid, but in its community, it's very, very active. Then you have The Crew, which is still active with Motorfest. Then you have Skull and Bones, survived pretty well against all odds, mind you. Wasn't really worth the investment that they did, and that was probably kind of part of why we're making this video in the first place. But then you have Just Dance. Just Dance is a massive, massive financial safety net for Ubisoft as a whole. But recently, there's been sort of more of like a licensed property situation where Ubisoft has shifted to making like avatars of Frontiers of Pandora for Avatar, and then there's also Star Wars Outlaws, which is considered canon, and it's really cool that they got the opportunity to do that. But these are licensed, which means Ubisoft can't simply sell them. If bankruptcy happened, Disney and other licensors would likely have enormous influence over what happened over these two games next. These games are less assets and more like, just rented territory, I'd say. But let me be clear here. Bankruptcy does not automatically mean that Ubisoft disappears. Usually, large companies file Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, which means they keep operating, they keep selling games, and employees keep working. But management gains time to restructure debt, and importantly, they can sell assets, including intellectual property, or IPs as it's more commonly known. This is where things get dangerous, because gaming history has seen this before. THQ, for example, is a perfect warning story. In 2012, THQ filed for bankruptcy. Then came the auction. Franchises were split, studios were sold, and IPs were scattered. Some brands survived, some disappeared, and some were revived years later. Ubisoft itself even bought a few pieces of this, and that's what a breakup looks like. It's not a massive collapse and everybody's favorite games going dormant or dying forever. It's a controlled disassembly, sort of like a corporate scavenger hunt where people grab what they want and leave the rest for someone else. But then you have Telltale. Telltale was definitely different from THQ. The studio collapsed, and then most employees were laid off. But the brand survived, the assets were purchased, and games were returned, yeah. But there is another possibility. Ubisoft, the company, could shrink dramatically, while its franchise live on under entirely different owners. So like Microsoft buying Splinter Cell, Sony buying Rayman, Tencent taking Assassin's Creed, and EA somehow ending up with fucking Far Cry, which is not something I would like. I don't want to have to pay to play fucking Far Cry on a subscription basis. But now, who gets what, really? That's the main question. A little speculation here. Assassin's Creed, Ubisoft could probably survive alone just on Assassin's Creed if they went more back to the roots. I'm not going to speak to that because it's just silly. But with the right leadership, they could go back more to roots. But if it was sold, only the richest bettors could obviously afford it. Tencent, Microsoft, or Sony. Maybe even Amazon, but they kind of flopped out with New World, so they probably wouldn't allow that. But Microsoft, namely, probably wouldn't be allowed to buy it because of their acquisition of Activision Blizzard. Pretty sure there was an agreement somewhere in there where they were not allowed to buy Ubisoft. But imagine how Ubisoft felt like, yo, dog, what the fuck you mean you buying us? Rainbow Six is a live service goal of mine, it goes without saying. Could attract Microsoft, EA, or even Valve, because Valve could definitely use that to compete with like CS even, like take even more of the live service sort of population there. Then you got Far Cry, premium fucking AAA shooter franchise. I love Far Cry. But the real danger isn't Ubisoft disappearing, it's fragmentation. A Ubisoft would scatter its worlds, different owners, different priorities, different monetization models, whereas Ubisoft has already had its own issues. Monetization models, I should not be paying actual money for in-game cosmetics. It's just silly. Different futures, Imagine Assassin's Creed as a fucking annual subscription service, Rainbow Six with battle passes designed by EA, fucking Splinter Cell is a mobile gacha game, and it's just a nightmare, not death. It's not death. It's a scary transformation is all it is. Ubisoft may survive, and it probably will. It still has money, it still has some of the best talent, and it controls one of gaming's largest libraries of intellectual property. But the cracks are visible, and if things get worse, Ubisoft won't simply vanish, it will be divided, sold, repurposed, its world scattered into new hands. The question is no longer, can Ubisoft keep making games? The question is, who inherits the kingdom if it can't? And honestly, I just want a fucking good Assassin's Creed movie, please, guys. It's been Forger, guys. I'm out. Thank you so much for watching.